Welcome, everyone. If you could take your seats, that would be great. I'm Karen Linkins, and I'm with Mind OC Be Well, and it's wonderful to see all of you today. A few housekeeping things before we start, and I am hoping that I'm going to get the full list out. The restrooms, if you haven't found them, are down the hall and to the left. We also, you may have noticed that we have a photographer here today. We are trying to capture images of this experience, and I just wanted to let you all know that. They will be used for social media, and so anyway, if you have any objections, please let us know. And was there anything else that I was supposed to? That was it? Okay, good. So there's the housekeeping. We're done. Okay, so on to the overview of the agenda. Oh. There we go. So we're doing the welcome right now. You may have noticed that we have a drummer here today, so we're going to be going through a little bit of what that meant and why this is happening. And then we have Pastor Pitts, who is the senior pastor at the Second Baptist Church, who will be speaking. And then that's going to be followed by a panel of colleagues from the community. And then we're going to have a presentation on what CalOptima has been up to most recently around street medicine. And then, I don't know if you all know it, but we have a lot to celebrate today. It's Pride Month. Juneteenth is right around the corner. And this is the 5th anniversary of the blueprint that you all created. And so it's pretty exciting. It kind of crept up on us. It's amazing. It's like, wow, how time flies. But here we are at 5 years. And the thing to remember about the blueprint is that it really is community created and driven. And it's a framework that's organizing our work together. And so I wanted to take a minute just to remind us, because I'm sure that you don't go to the website lovingly, and most you probably have not memorized the blueprint, so just wanted to make sure that you remember what it is. We have a blueprint for action. I'm not going to read it all, but ultimately, this is a video that we could play. We won't play it. But just to remind you, the idea here is that this is creating a movement, and we are moving toward a community of action. And behind this is the idea that no one sector can take on solving complex issues. We have to come together with collective impact to better address these issues. And the definition that we use, use within that, so we're actually talking more broadly about behavioral health. And the definition that we use is from the WHO, and that's what's there. But the vision behind Be Well is for Orange County to lead the nation in optimal mental health and wellness for all residents. And if you remember, at the heart of the blueprint, besides this idea of collective impact and besides the idea of equity, health equity that's embedded in the blueprint, we have 6 result areas that are creating the preconditions. They are addressing the preconditions for getting to that optimal mental health for all in Orange County. And so these are the 6, and today we're actually going to be focusing on number 6, which is aligning partners, policies, and programs. And if you recall, as a community, we decided to put that in very intentionally because it doesn't happen naturally. It's actually something where this county has enormous resources and talents and that sort of thing, and lots of organizations and entities doing great work. And the thought behind this was that if we do this together, we can be more impactful. We can also use resources more appropriately, or not appropriately, but we can actually get more out of the resources that we're using by combining our efforts. So without further ado, I would like Johnny's Williams to come on up with our drummer. And this was really the kickoff of our celebration today, to have the drumming, and they're now going to talk a little bit about what that meant, and I'm going to pass it to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to see all of you here. There's a lot of people, and I'm excited. We are, as Karen said, we're celebrating Juneteenth. So, and our birthday, and Gay Pride, or Pride, excuse me, not just gay. Sorry. So I'm trying to get every term correct. My responsibility was to get a drummer, an African drummer. So he is straight from Africa. So don't think that he's not. I was told he was, and I believe it. And as soon as he speaks, you will believe it too. Rayin is from the Drummond studio, and so they do not just drumming, they actually have the dance. And so I'm going to give Rayin, a moment to actually play and then tell you a little bit of what Africa is to all of us and why we celebrate Juneteenth.
Hello, everyone. So when I played that part, to explain to you how we can speak djembe and what's the history behind having this instrument and playing it, and this beautiful instrument. This beautiful instrument comes from Mother Earth. The wood is from Mother Earth. The skin, the blood of the skin, is got back to Mother Earth. And this is more of like a spiritual grounding. It's not physical grounding. It's not your feet on the ground. This is your mind on the ground. My name is Rayan. I'm Amazighi, Berber. The term is Berber now. It's the natives of North Africa. Our calendar is like 2,973, which celebrates the first Berber pharaoh in ancient Egypt. That's the start of the calendar. We have a lot of history there. The label of Africa being one color is not true, as you can see. There's a lot of colors in Africa. A lot of colors of eyes, and also a lot of languages. Can you guess how many languages they exist in Africa? Give me a guess, anyone? Let's hundreds and more. So, make it easy. Any guess? 400? More. 800. More. 2,000. More. A little bit more than 2,000. It's 2,500 languages actually exist in Africa. I speak 5 of them, 6 if I count Spanish. It's a huge culture there. We're celebrating the freedom. Juneteenth is a celebration of freedom, that what we got now and what we fight for in the future. And I know this meeting is about healing, and healing starts only from us. It starts in us. If you can heal yourself, you can help yourself, you can heal yourself. Not like there is a lot of programs, they're gonna help you, people, they're gonna help you. A lot of resources, especially in Orange County. You're lucky to be here in Orange County. I've lived here 4 years. This is a beautiful place to be a part of, and you're really lucky to be here. But it starts beneath us. This beautiful instruments, why we're here, this beautiful djembe helped a lot of people surpass trauma, surpass a lot of struggles in life, just by expressing those emotions. The language that I spoke with the djembe, those are my emotions. If I was sad, I would play a different way. If I was angry, I would play a different way. If I was angry, the djembe is gonna be angry at me, and then it's gonna hurt my fingers. Happened to me like 2 or 3 times. It's healing. It's beautiful. The trauma, like that frequency and those waves, and getting back to our ancestors, something that we don't see. It's a frequency that we don't see. We only feel it beneath, like inside us, and it helped a lot of people get to a better place in life. So hopefully, with this, you would have more programs about teaching people music, teaching people about djembe, and how they can heal themselves from this beautiful, beautiful instrument that healed thousands of people around the world. They play it for a reason, and it's gets us back to our nature and our vision of life, like our true vision of life, our happiness, our dance, our chanting, our music, it's our life. It's not what we see now with cars and buildings and everything. It's about nature. It's about beautiful frequencies and beautiful. Everything would be beautiful. Everything is not like 1, 2, 3, 4. You say 100, 101. You have your own numbers. You have your own path. You just live your life and be happy. And I would wish everyone would go forward and heal from everything they have in this life. And yeah, thank you guys for having this opportunity to have such a beautiful opportunity for everyone to help each other and move forward. And God bless you, everyone. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think that was a great example of how healing can happen in unexpected ways, and we may underestimate just the ways that different cultures actually heal and have expressions of mental health. So thank you again. Thank you so much. And now is my pleasure and with great appreciation to introduce Pastor Pitts, who is known for his unique style and enthusiastic delivery of the word. And he believes that worship, fellowship, discipleship, evangelism, and services are key areas of concentration for a healthy and growing church. And I would say probably for the community too. He serves as the Second Baptist Church pastor, and he's the 11th pastor. This is the oldest Baptist church in Orange County. Is that right, Kalita? Oldest black church in Orange County. And the Second Baptist Church has a facility that now includes youth worship, a youth worship center, and classrooms to accommodate all Christian education. And then in 2016, they expanded to Lake Forest. It's written here that they very nicely adopted a campus in Lake Forest, and it's affectionately known as the South Campus. And the union of these two locations birthed the Second Baptist message of sharing Christ, building believers, and caring for all. Pastor Pitts earned a bachelor's degree in social science from San Diego State University, a Master of Arts degree in counseling psychology from Clark Atlanta University, a Master of Arts degree in Religious Education and Pastoral Studies from Fordham, and lastly, a Doctorate of Ministry degree in Pastoral Care and Counseling from the New York Theological Seminary. So with no further ado, I'm going to pass things over to Pastor Pitts. Oh, here, your mic.
Thank you all so much. It is a great honor and a privilege to be here with you today. I'm nervous, I have to tell you. Not only are you all very smart and well experienced, but when I stand up here, y'all good looking. You ought to turn to your neighbor and say, he's so nice. And he sees well. Tell your neighbor, he sees very, very, very well. Thank you so much for that great introduction. I have to change my bio because it's too long, and I don't believe half the stuff that's on there anyway. But I am honored, so thank you so much. I am struggling today. It is a bit of a challenge for me. Two things that I might need your help with. One is that I'm a Baptist preacher, and they gave me 20 minutes, and you know Baptists, we don't even warm up until we get to like 30 minutes, so I gotta work on that. The second thing, whenever I see good-looking, well-dressed people in this kind of arena, I want to take an offering. And I have an offering plate here, so I'm really struggling. You all, do what you need to do to help me get to where I need to get to so I can get to the point. We are better together. We are better together. You have to understand that in our society, we would believe, based upon the activities of media, social media, based on the response and how we act, that we are better in our own silos, in our own corners, in our own way. But I'm telling you, we are simply better together. You still didn't get it. Let me give it to you this way. If you only had 2 teeth, wouldn't they look better together? So we are better together. So that's kind of what I want to drill home with you today. And some of my conversation today from this aspect or this perspective may be uncomfortable for some of us. It's uncomfortable for me as well. We're going to talk about mental health and the African American perspective. I'll give you just a few stats and figures and some things that are important for us to know. But I need you to understand that sometimes it is the best growth comes from when we are uncomfortable. My son plays basketball. He's an avid basketball player, and he hurt his lower back last year and had to go through physical therapy. And he said, Dad, the therapy hurts. He says, I'd rather just not do it and see if it heals on its own. And the doctor said to him, you have to go through the discomfort of physical therapy in order to get the strength to continue to do what you need to do. We may have some uncomfortable moments, but I want us to get through the uncomfortable conversation so that we can have the strength to do what we have been called to do. First and foremost, we are united in a common mission. The common mission is hope. Hope starts here. The Second Baptist Church of Santa Ana, as my dear friend shared with you all, was founded in 1923, 100 years ago. We are celebrating our 100th anniversary. And the church came out of a season of discomfort and of pain from our society. African Americans in Orange County, in the blue state of California in 1923, could not worship with white folks, blacks and white, by ordinance, by the law, not just by culture, not by tradition, but by the ordinance of Orange County, could not worship together. And so we are the Second Baptist Church because First Baptist Church couldn't worship with us. And they helped us to start a Second Baptist Church of Santa Ana. And the church became a place of more than just worship, more than just Bible study. It became a hub of social activities, a hub of fellowship, a hub of businesses were birthed out of the church, and it became a counseling center. It became a one-stop shopping for all things African American. And we've learned over the years that we can't do it all by ourselves. I'll just kind of tell you this really cool kind of closing. In 2016, the First Baptist Church of Santa Ana that helped us start at that time, about 95 years earlier, closed their doors for the last time. But we came together, we worshiped together for the last 2 years of their existence. We pooled our resources together, and because of that collaboration, we have been able over the last 5 years to give almost $1 million in aid and support to community organizations that have different organizations but have a similar purpose. We have given money to New Hope Elementary School to help them with some of their support during the time of COVID. We have given money to Wise Place, and we have given money to other organizations because we know that we are simply better. We can't do anything. None of us is as strong as all of us. If we come together, we can make it. And so it became a trusted voice, and we know that hope started there for many of us, but it continues on. Even today, we have something called the HEAL Collective. The HEAL Collective, which stands for the Health Equity for African American League. That is an organization that puts together churches and organizations and individuals who are concerned about the health and well-being, the holistic health and well-being of African Americans in this community. We make up about 2% of the entire population of Orange County. That seems like a very small number. But 1 in 5 African Americans struggle with mental health illness. And we went through a whole a survey where we had over 600 people respond, which is historic, because in the past we couldn't get more than 100 people to respond to a survey because of the privacy, because of the suspicion, because of the mistrust over the years that has happened. And we were able to get over 600 respondents to the survey. Watch this, with a 94% accuracy and confidence rating, and that was really, really wonderful. And what we've learned from that as a trusted voice is HEAL, we learned several things: that African Americans in this community are concerned about affordable health care access, they're concerned about nutrition, they're concerned about health care discrimination, and one of the big things that African Americans in this community were concerned about was mental health services and support. In response to that, we are now trying to figure out how to connect with other stakeholders so that we can address the challenges of African American mental health in our community. African Americans make up about 14% of the U.S. population. And as I said, about 1 in 5 struggle from mental health issues, and that mirrors what's happening here in Orange County. The number of people who struggle with trauma for mental health in African American communities equals the population, you ready for this, Chicago, Philadelphia, and Houston combined. Nearly 7 million people, unspoken, struggle with some kind of mental health issues. Blacks below the poverty line are 2 times more likely to report serious mental health issues. African Americans are more likely to feel sad, hopeless, and worthless than any other population more. Black suicide among teens are up at 9.8%, and the white counterparts about 6.1%. Nationally, African American therapists only make up about 4% of the therapists nationwide. What does that mean? That if you want to try to find someone who can relate to your story, someone you can connect to, someone who understands your background, you have longer wait times, which means alternative means of coping with stress. And sometimes that means depression, sometimes that means substance abuse, and sometimes that means lingering and sitting in your trauma without ways to cope. And we know when we don't deal with our mental health and our emotional health, it begins to impact every other aspect of our lives. We also know this problem is so big we cannot do it together because we are what? Better together. Now, what are the challenges to getting health in African American communities, mental health services, African American community? It's more than just affordability, which is an issue. It's more than just accessibility, which is an issue. It's also things like stigma. There's a stigma. No one wants to be called crazy. I know you're not supposed to use the word crazy. I ain't crazy. Or saying that I'm broke in. There's a stereotype of being weak if you have to go talk to a therapist. I remember when I was coming through seminary, an older pastor told me that if you're going to be working in a helping field and helping others, you need to have a counselor. You need to go see a therapist at least once a month. And I said, I'm not crazy. He said, a therapist is not for someone who's crazy. A therapist is for someone who's trying not to be crazy. So you're not weak. You're not broken. You're not crazy if you go see a therapist. But fear being labeled, fear of your privacy or your confidentiality not being kept, fear of being misunderstood. It is very difficult to understand the plight and the trauma and the generational trauma that's passed down from generation to generation being African American in this country. And again, I'm not trying to say that this is a bad country. I'll tell you, I've been all over the world. I love it right here, especially Southern California. I think God lives in Southern California. No, I think he lives somewhere near Newport Beach in Irvine. I'm serious. I've been there before. It's gorgeous. Because in Southern California, it's the only place on Christmas Day you can have 85-degree temperature, go to the snow in the mountains, and later on that day be surfing at the beach. God has to live here. Anyway, so those are some of the things that we have to deal with, this fear of being labeled, this privacy, this being misunderstood. But then there's another one that is really deep, and we're going to take questions in a few moments. This perspective of your spirituality. Oftentimes, those who believe in God or believe in a God or a higher power believe that mental health is because you don't have enough time for prayer. You don't believe enough. You're not trusting enough. And that is simply not the case. You can love God and still be stressed and depressed and struggle from bipolarism. It has nothing to do with your faith. It has everything to do with the fact that you're a human being. You all should have said amen. Therefore, we must be a trusted voice to help our community be well. But we cannot do it by ourselves. The HEAL Collaborative is a group of people, a group of organizations from Orange County who care about the African American community, but we can't do it on our own. We need to be in relationship with other stakeholders, people who care enough, people who believe that if one person is hurting, then we all hurt. Someone who cares more than just about care more about just people who look like them, or live like them, or love like them, or pray like them, or don't pray like them. But the fact that we are concerned because we are all human beings, and that none of us is as good as all of us. We all must what? Be well. This is very, very personal for me. Very personal. I am linked to a man who for almost 2 decades suffered from mental health challenges. About 13 years ago, he went to jail, this man, for stalking and attacking someone and served 2 years in prison. And for the last 10 years after he got out of prison, he has done all kinds of things that are just unthinkable because he has not had the mental health support that he may need. He served in the United States Army. He was in Special Forces and was a medic at one point in time. And I am linked to him because on February the 24th last year, he went on a binge stabbing. He attacked 3 people in the city in which I lived. One guy near the beach. I live in the city of Long Beach. One near the beach. One in the city, in the central city. And then one person he attacked right in front of my house. It was me. Out of nowhere, I'm preparing myself for a run, and this guy comes out. He's 6'4", 230 pounds. Stabbed me 7 times. I spent the week in ICU. Stabbed me 5 times in the back. Both lungs were punctured. 2 broken bones, skull and shoulder blade. Stabbed me twice in the eye, had no vision. Had to have surgery and have to have another one at some point. And it's because of mental health issues. And my family and my friends who love me say, I'm so excited. They arrested the guy. He's facing 90 years in prison. Praise God, right? For me, that's not victory. Victory is not having him locked up in prison. Victory for me is having him free from the prison of mental health issues. I would rather see him out free of his mental health challenges than to be stuck in his mental health challenges in a prison. That's what Be Well is about. Be Well is not imprisoning people. Be Well is about freeing people to be able to live the life that they were purposed to live. And we can make a difference in the lives of people like him if we come together, because we are simply better together. Will you all join me in the effort to make sure every person in Orange County, regardless of how small the percentage is, have access to quality, affordable, caring, culturally relevant mental health services? All right, I think that's it. I don't know if I have anything else to say. Oh, one more thing. Since we're here, no, I'm just playing. So I'm going to take some questions and comments. I deliberately tried to be under my time. Please don't tell the people at my church I didn't go 45 minutes. Can you do me a solid and, not tell anybody? Questions or comments? Oh, y'all ain't got nothing to say? Okay, we're going to go ladies first and then there, right here.
How do we find out more about the efforts going on through your collaborative?
Kalita, how do we find out more efforts? How do we find out more information about the efforts we're doing through this collaborative? She needs a mic. So you guys have to understand something. I'm just the mouth. She's the brains behind this thing. I'm the big mouth and she's the big brain. There it is.
Hi, I'm Kalita Gardner, and I am the Executive Director of HEAL, and we have a website. It is healoc.org. We recently published a report to a selected group of stakeholders. It will be posted on our website soon, and we are in the process of developing a strategy that will be very specific and targeted to our key stakeholders to move the needle.
Will you spell HEAL for us?
HEAAL, Health Equity for African Americans League. HEALOC.org.
Thank you, Kalita.
You're welcome.
Yes, sir. Oh, here. Yes, sir.
Yes. My experience with a lot of faith communities, churches, interfaith, has been not that they, especially the leadership, pastors, the elders, it's not been that they are looked down upon or are antagonistic to those in the mental health community and those who suffer from mental health conditions, but there's a strong lack of what do I do. I've spoken to pastors who've said that we would love to help people with mental illness and their families, but how do I know what's helping, what's hurting? How do I know if I'm not enabling them by offering compassion to them? Am I promoting bad behavior?
Yeah.
And I've seen it over, and these are not bad people. These are not people who want and are intentional hurt. So my question to you is, how can we reach the leaders of faith communities and bring about a change so that when somebody comes who has mental health or maybe their family member, when they go to the one place where they feel most comfortable, their faith community, that they are given the help they need from that resource?
Yeah. So I want to make a comment, and then I have some, before I sit down, I have just a few kind of thoughts about what we can do together. Historically, in the Hispanic, Latino community, African American community, and even Asian communities, Vietnamese community, the church is kind of the center of the community. And the pastors sometimes, and I'm a pastor, been a pastor for 22 years, sometimes we overestimate our spiritual abilities. And we try to be all things to all people, and that's dangerous. I think the first thing we must do is begin to denominationally and through a collaboration of associations, begin to offer training to pastors and, through their denominations or through our denominations to really help us to be free and liberated from the burden of trying to be all things to all people. I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, we should all be in therapy ourselves, like real talk, right? And it's really easy to talk about it from perspective if you are processing and you're a part of it. And so I think that it has helped me tremendously being in therapy for 22 years since I got into full-time ministry. So I think that is, you have to go through the denominations and the associations and provide high-quality training and helping them to be liberated from the idea that we can be all things to all people. For those who read the Christian Bible, it says that we can do all things through Christ, which strengthens us. And some people may interpret that they can pray for someone with mental illness and it's going to go away, or put oil on them. And I tell people, you can have enough oil on someone to fry chicken, and that ain't going to change nothing. We need therapy. We need medication. We need professionals to help in areas. So when you can do all things, that means you can refer people. You can be a channel to help people get the help they need. Make sense? All right. Any more questions or comments? Yes. Hello. Just want to see how we're doing on time. Okay.
Hello.
There it is.
I'd sing, but you don't get sick. My name is Lita Albright. I work with San Diego State University, and we have a curriculum that is basically exactly what you're talking about here. It's bringing faith-based leaders and behavioral health practitioners together so they understand the importance of working with people who have mental health issues. That's what you were saying, Pastor, about what your role is and how far you can go. For behavioral health, what their role is and how far they can go, and how it's important to understand that faith is central to a lot of people. And I love this training because it's about time that we can actually speak about faith in a person's life. So you want to help that person holistically. So if anybody would like some more information, I'm here.
Yeah. And listen, again, I'm not trying to push my faith. I think that spirituality, for me, I define spirituality as love in action, right? Regardless of how you get it. And love in action is self-love first. How do you love yourself? And the Bible, if you all would allow me to use it, even as a literature, talks about mental health challenges throughout. I mean, David got depressed, and other people. There's just so many things around mental health that's in the Bible, and that it speaks to being healed and delivered. And don't be afraid of it, but face it. And we can be better. We can be holistic. And spirituality or religion or faith is one aspect of wholeness, that we can no longer separate that from the rest of our lives. It's all integrated. And I think we need to look at it from that perspective. So when you are talking healthcare professionals, when you're talking to church folks, you need to use their language. And when you use the language, use the Bible. You don't have to be a Christian, but you can say, I know your literature. Your literature says, boom, 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 boom. Does that make sense? You don't have to be a Christian to quote the scriptures that relate to the people in which you're talking to. Does that make sense? I'll take one more. Okay, I won't take one more. Now, you said you were from San Diego State University? Yes. Oh, that's where I went to school. Shoot. We should talk. So, a couple things as we close out our time. There is a shortage of African American therapists nationally, and even particularly here in Orange County. And how do we begin to address those kinds of things? I think we have to be creative. What we're doing at our church and other churches in the collective is we're doing some lay training for people within our church to kind of recognize things and help people and walk along with them as they get the help they need to get? Also, is there a way to fast track therapists? You know, you have to get, was it 3,000 hours after your master's degree and things of that nature in certain courses? I know that back in the day, you guys are not as old as I am, but when I was a young guy, they had a shortage of teachers in the Los Angeles Unified School District, and they gave things like emergency credentials, where that person could teach in the classroom and had someone to kind of mentor them as they go through the process. Are those kind of things available for us, and so forth and so on? But I know that if we come together, we're creative enough to come up with ideas, to way to connect. And also, I don't believe that someone who is culturally sensitive has to be black. It could be someone like Rob. He works at a church. He's white. It's just, I don't know if you know that, but Rob is white. He's my one white friend, that's Rob. But Rob understands. He spent a lot of time in the African-American community and African-American churches. He understands the plight. He understands some of the struggles, and he speaks the language that can help people to trust him, because one of the keys to therapy is trust. And he can garner trust even though he's not black. The last thing, my hope and desire, my dream one day, is to see on our campus at a church or somewhere in that central Santa Ana area, which is central to all of Orange County, is to have a wellness center, starting with counseling services. And I would love to have conversations with those who can make that happen. We have 3 buildings on our campus, and 2 very large buildings, and one is a smaller building. It's about 7,000 square feet. I think it is 8,000 square feet. And we call that the kitchen drawer. Whatever we don't do in the 2 big buildings, we just kind of throw it in there. And we are in the process of cleaning it out and trusting that we are going to be able to have a counseling center in there and other kind of services in the near future. So I want you to consider, I don't want you to, I'm asking you if you would consider ways that we can collaborate to bring services to our community. Yes?
Can I just,
Of course you can just.
I think policy change is important.
She said, I think policy change is important. Now we have the mic. Tell us what kind of policy change and why.
Okay, I'm Holly from the Multicultural Institute in Irvine. We provide mental health services to the marginalized communities in Orange County. And we have approached policymakers to establish curriculum change in schools. And as you address the issue with African American communities and how you can recruit more therapists in that community is to bring in counseling and therapists and curriculum change in their school systems, to introduce African American students to mental health issues and have them have that conversation, that dialogue.
Yeah. And it is. I think there's 2 things that have happened at the same time. I think that is brilliant. I think that as you destigmatize the community, destigmatize therapy to the African American community and other minority communities as well, as we're not the only ones, you do 2 things. You make people more comfortable going to seek therapy, and then you encourage people of African American descent to go into therapy. So the destigmatization of it is important from both perspectives. 1, to get the help we need, and 2, to get people involved in it. When you see something that is safe, something that is welcoming, something that is not doubted by spirituality and things of that nature, you open the floodgates, or potentially open the floodgates to get people more involved. But one of the hindrances, and I recognize that you have to have professionals that have to be trained and know what's ethical and understand transference and counter-transference and all the other stuff that's appropriate and inappropriate and things. I'm not making light of that. But in the meantime and in between time, you have people who are hurting silently. And we can't be the best that we can be, and our community can't be the best that we can be. There's no way in this country that there should be someone who served in the military, in special forces, in 2022, that's been sick for almost 2 decades. You don't think that's a justice issue? And the answer is not locking him up. And I'm victimized. I still don't have full vision in my left eye. I don't care about that. If that guy can get some help, then we really rocking. Then we become the land of the free.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that message is particularly poignant today because when we think about Result Area 6, which is where the expectation is for entities in the community, individuals in the community to come together and work differently, think differently. We're talking about systems change. We're also talking about transformations at the individual, community, and then system levels within that context. And a word that the pastor used, trust, is part of that. And the next panel that's going to come up, part of what they're going to be talking about today was their ability to trust each other, to come together and think, okay, we're not going to compete against each other, we're actually going to work together, and we're going to learn how to work together from different sectors. We had to learn new language, all of these types of things, and they're going to be talking about that today. So I'd like to invite the panel up, and including our moderator. And I think that, Result Area 6, just to remind you, is aligning, policies, programs, and funding. And the idea here is that we are going to work together to better align and collaborate. And another thread that I want to pull forward from Pastor Pitts was talking about a collaborative, HEAL. In a lot of ways, or even a coalition, in a lot of ways, Result Area 6 is also the expression of how in the Be Well umbrella, it's inviting other existing coalitions in the community that are important, that are serving specific issues, populations, that sort of thing, to come together and also align. So we're not just talking about individual organizations aligning here. We're actually, you can kind of start seeing it as a coalition of coalitions. And so that's another theme that I just want to draw forward, and then I know the panelists will address that brilliantly. So with that, I'm going to pass things to Iliana Welty, who is... She's an expert, first of all. She is an expert in many things. She's an expert advisor to Be Well, and she is representing, helps us represent and educate around health equity, as well as the community partnerships. So here you go.
Thank you.
I don't really know what your title is. So.
I'm still trying to figure it out. It's lots of things. Good afternoon, everyone. Iliana, Soto, Welty, and I work on health equity and community partnerships, and it's a pleasure to be moderating this panel. We're going to be discussing the Student Behavioral Health Incentive Program. There are many exciting initiatives coming down from the state, and this one is particularly exciting because there's about $25.5 million that are being allocated. And before we get started, we're going to just introduce our multi-sector panel. And this is actually going to be a self-facilitated panel. We're going to have them do introductions and just pass the mic. We'll start with you, Dr. Huszti.
Thank you so much. So I think this is the good news, bad news, right? Come and speak about something you're passionate about, yay, but you follow Pastor Pitts. So I don't know. I will do my best to keep the energy going. So I'm Dr. Heather Huszti. I'm the chief psychologist at Children's Hospital of Orange County. And I've been involved with Be Well from the beginning. So I remember those first meetings in much smaller rooms than this. And really, that idea, I remember when Karen introduced the idea of collective impact to us. And I think a lot of us in the room were like, what? And that idea, though, of here we are together, so many of us, so much representation, this room really illustrates collective impact. And then hopefully this panel sort of shows it on a swath of the work that's been being done by Be Well and within the community. So I think when we think about results area 6, that is sometimes one of the more amorphous areas to think about of like, well, what does that collaboration really mean, or how do you get there? And I think it's one of those things, I think as Pastor Pitts was saying to us, we're better together. And sometimes the devil's in the details of how do we get together and how do we manage to bridge that, right? And there's a lot of roads you go down where you're like, this isn't the right road, or that's a cul-de-sac. And then there are other roads you go down and you're like, hey man, this is like, I'm on the freeway. This is awesome. And I think that's been sort of the iteration of our work together as well, thinking about school-based services, that we've had a lot of discussions, and you'll hear from the other panelists, between our organizations, Orange County Department of Education, through CalOptima, CHOC, and a lot of other community-based organizations over the years about, the kids are in school. Like, how do we access them? What do we do? And it's an overwhelming problem, right? And I think Pastor Pitts did just talk about, and I know you guys know this as well, 1 in 5 African Americans have a mental health disorder. 1 in 5 children has a diagnosable mental health disorder during their childhood. So when you think about those numbers for Orange County, just Orange County, that's 150,000. There is no organization, including the wonderful schools, that can manage 150,000 kids. And yet, if we don't, then we have the whole issue of the adult mental health issue, right? So it's important for us all to, so we've had those conversations and sort of, those ideas of like, oh, wait, what can I do? What can you do? And the great news is and this is sort of where you pull the thread and sometimes you're not quite sure where that road's going, is in having those conversations, we start to develop a shared language and understanding. Sometimes we use exactly the same words, but they mean really different things. So we have to like go through that of like, oh, you meant this. Oh, okay. Or you have to learn trust in each other, right? It's never easy for organizations to sort of meet up and go like, okay, how do you become a trusted partner? And because we were doing that work and because Be Well has brought people together in the room, because we're all together, is that we had the sort of foundation built that when this money, the school-based incentive program came down the pike, Orange County was ready to take advantage and really compete for a pretty significant amount of money, in part because we were already working together. And there's a lot of, and I think Carmen will speak to this, but there's other counties that have not been as successful in their sort of constellation together. So I'm going to stop there in that sort of introduction of how does this all fit with Result Area 6, and let my fellow panelists introduce themselves and talk a little bit about their part and role.
Thank you, Heather. So I'm Dr. Jami Parsons, and I'm the Director of the Integrated Supports and Services Unit at the Orange County Department of Education. And I think the work that you're going to hear about today from us during this panel conversation is a great example of better together. We could not do this singly or apart. We absolutely cannot. But the power is in the potential of this collaboration, and we're seeing it blossom and grow, and I think you're going to be excited to hear what we're working on. Certainly the schools were ground zero during the pandemic as to all of these factions coming together. We saw lots of mental health needs growing exponentially during and after the pandemic, and we're continuing to see that. So we have great concerns about how we can help the students as well as the staff, as you mentioned there before as well. So we're excited about this, and I'm happy to be here today with you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here today. I'm Carmen Katsarov, and I'm the Executive Director of Behavioral Health Integration at CalOptima Health. And for those of you that might not know already, CalOptima Health, this is the county-organized health system for Orange County, public-funded agency. And in Medi-Cal, we have over 900 and something thousand members. And so a third of the members that we service are children. And so and I'm also a social worker and a licensed therapist. So in my past lives, I did a lot of direct service, but I've been in the managed care environment now for over 10 years. And like Heather eloquently said, Dr. Huszti, that this was already a movement, right? And Be Well and in Orange County, these conversations were also happening. And so when I started in my role at CalOptima Health, I was grateful and humble to be asked to start to be included into this movement. I was like, yes, please have me, and thank you. And that was from the county, Dr. Joe, at the county organization, and also with Be Well and CHOC and others who said, please start becoming part of this conversation together. So like Heather said, when this opportunity came from the state, and I'm going to touch on that in a second, we were already having these conversations, and so we were a little bit ahead and we were ready and said together, though, again, it was a decision together in Orange County to take the next step and apply for this funding through the state. So you might be asking, well, what is this SB-HIP? The state loves a lot of acronyms. They love HIPs as far as in mental health. There was a B-HIP, and now there's an SB-HIP, and we'll see if there's some other HIPs. But so it's the Student Behavioral Incentive Program, but I will refer to it as SB-HIP going forward, just so I can speak faster, right? Okay, and to break it down in a simple format that I had to learn, because it was confusing at first, but basically the Department of Healthcare Services, DHCS, which is one of our main funders as the public health agency. The state funding, this is an initiative that's going across the state, so also in California. So it's a 3-year incentive funding program, so years 22 through 2024. And this is an opportunity basically to have the managed care plans and the schools and community come together with goals such as building infrastructure, building capacity, breaking through silos with the end goal of more access and better coordination of mental health services for school-aged youth. So the state kind of did their own calculations based on Orange County, the population that we have, the population of students that we have, and yes, the total amount allocated that we could compete for was $25.5 million. I am happy to report, again, thanks to my colleagues and many other people we can't mention, that contributed to this that are not in the room. We successfully submitted the project proposal to the state, and in March received the approval of the SB-HIP project plan that we all put together. And one thing I'll mention is, again, just about that shared language and coming together. It really took all of us to sit in the room together, especially us being the managed care plan, right? This is not something where we would come into the room and, say, we are the managed care company, we're going to tell you what to do, right? This was us coming together to share ideas and to say, yes, we want to do this together. And so that's really what we've been working on. The last year, we've done a needs assessment. So the interventions that we chose for SB-HIP, again, those came directly from the school of what are the current needs of our students in Orange County. And the different initiatives that we are going to work on together the next couple of years have come from that. Thank you. And I think I'm going to pass it over to Jami for a little bit more discussion.
Okay, thank you. So as Carmen talked about, we've been meeting for about 2 years, and it came out of the pandemic, those discussions about seeing the greater need for mental health support for our students. In schools, you typically have your standard school-based mental health providers. We call them our PPS, Pupil Personnel Services Providers. Those are your school counselors, your school psychologists. You might have some school social workers on some campuses, or you might have used some funding to hire school-based clinicians. Or you make partnerships with outside agencies, community-based organizations to provide that additional level of mental health support. But we've been talking about it, and there's certainly an inadequate level of mental health support to meet the need that we currently have. And so the superintendents themselves in Orange County, all 29 superintendents, came together. As part of their regular meetings, they formed a subcommittee. That subcommittee has been meeting well over 18 months to talk about this singular topic. What can we do to support student and staff mental health? And so out of those conversations grew these partnerships, because we recognize as the school system we cannot do it alone. And so we have established wonderful relationships with CHOC Hospital, with CalOptima, with Western Youth Services, with Hazel Health. And so we've developed this collaboration that is working very, very well. And with Carmen and CalOptima, we were able to apply and receive this funding for Orange County alone, the $25.5 million that we can use over the next 2 years. So what we're happy about is that we had a variety of stakeholder input. We had the superintendents there, they had district level leadership, we had our partners. The school districts certainly had input from their parents and community, either anecdotally or quantitatively through surveys, and from the boots on the ground, what they were seeing day to day. So we had that broad input. We know that this is systems change work. And that's part of the work I do at Orange County. Is I'm part of the state leadership for California MTSS, or Multi-Tiered System of Support. That framework includes academic support, behavioral support, social and emotional support, as well as mental health support. What do you do for all kids? What do you do for some kids who need a little bit more support? And what do you do for those few kids who need intensified support? So it's built in, but we know this is system change work. That takes time. And system change work only really moves, I heard a good quote from someone, that it only moves at the speed of trust. And the trust that we have developed in this partnership over the last 2 years has really enabled us to move more quickly for this. So I'm excited about the services we're going to be able to provide and get into the schools. Some of the work we're doing is with Hazel Health. That's a telehealth service that we'll be able to provide to students and families during the school day. That's going to close that equity gap for students and families who are unable to go see mental health providers after school hours and in the evenings. So that's going to help quite a bit. That's going to be available to all school districts in Orange County, and they can take advantage of that starting as soon as next year. In addition, we're going to be able to pass through funding from this grant through CalOptima to our school districts directly. They'll be able to hire more mental health service providers, or they'll be able to pay their existing mental health service providers for after hours, evenings, and weekend support as needed. And they'll be able to use it to build their infrastructure to begin that billing process to bill Medi-Cal for school-based mental health services. This year, for the first time ever, schools are going to be able to expand the opportunity to bill for Medi-Cal eligible services, which means we can now bill for the existing providers we already had, which are our school counselors, school psychs. We've never been able to do that for general education students. And so that's going to be a unique addition to this that I think school staff are going to be excited about, and the school administrators, because that's going to be able to create a revenue stream that will be able to offset the costs of adding more staff. So with that, I know Orange County Department of Education's role is really as a liaison between these wonderful service providers and our school districts. That is our function. We're also going to act as a fiscal agent in passing through the money, and then we're going to provide technical assistance along the way and leadership along with this collaborative. So with that, I'll turn it over to Heather.
Thank you, Jami. And so I'll just illustrate a little bit about what community-based organizations might be providing. And Jami and Carmen had both mentioned that sort of extensive pre-work, right, of identifying where are their gaps, where are their issues. And so as we were doing that pre-work, some of the things that we identified were because of those long waits for services. A lot of times those kids who were in crisis but not maybe in acute crisis, we're being sent to our emergency departments, right? Because it's like, oh, well, that's sort of the safety net, right? And gosh, if there's nowhere else to send them, I'll send them there, which then just prolongs the wait and overwhelms our system, right? So one of the things we're working to create in partnership with OCDE and CalOptima is a sort of in-between service, almost like an urgent care, where people can get appointments within 3 days. And so not a kid who's acutely like suicidal, but a child who's like, I've been thinking about it, I'm really distressed, and the parents are like, I can't get my kid into services. It's short-term stabilization up to 4 sessions, and then we connect you to services within the community so that we can continue to see more and more kids. And save, I mean, it's so traumatic for families and kids to go to the emergency department, have those long waits, get that evaluation. We'd rather do it in a more outpatient clinic setting. And it's a model that's worked well in other places in the country. So we're excited about that. We also have been working with OCDE over the past, 2-3 years of building well spaces. You guys may have heard of those or you may not have, but OCDE has it up on their website, a beautiful explanation. But the idea is, and I think to the conversation we had earlier, how do we address stigma? Well, one of the ways we address stigma is to normalize the experience of mental health issues, normalize the building of resilience, normalize all of that. And what better way to do that than to have a space, a physical space in a school that is dedicated to that, right? We have a gymnasium, we have a cafeteria. We all know physical health is important, nutrition is important, but so is mental health, right? So it's a space designed in such a way that it actually, there's research to show, kind of helps your whole system go, and kind of calm down. And then you have a lot of resources in building resilience in kids, and kids can start to access those services when feeling a little on edge, I'm feeling a little stressed. It's where we can do groups in teaching how do you prepare yourself for exams, or how do you do these kinds of things. So we're building more of those through this, which is awesome. And as Jami was saying, system change is difficult, so also supporting the schools and how do I best use those spaces and encourage that sort of normalization within the school population. And then we also are looking at helping with those highest level tier services, those most acute kids. And so those children who like come to our emergency department, come to our inpatient mental health unit, what's the best way to sort of surround and support them in not having to go back to the ED or the inpatient unit, right? The idea is always we want to treat at home and out of the hospital. And so schools are the best place, right? That's a place where kids are, and that we can wrap those services around them with the families and the child's permission, of course. But that idea is as children are discharged from our emergency department, and we saw over 2,500 kids last year in our emergency department with a psychiatric disorder for a psychiatric screening, or discharged from our inpatient mental health unit. We saw about 700 kids last year that were discharged from our unit. And then how do we have a person whose job is to connect back with the schools to say, hey, this child's coming back, here's some things we think they might need, and then they can access those services and also follow up and be sure that kids get those services and aren't encountering barriers in the community that we may not know about, right, because we've discharged you. So it's another way to make that whole continuum of care work. So I'll stop here. There's other agencies involved and other exciting services you'll hear more about, but we just wanted to do this little illustration of sort of the 30,000 foot view and make you guys aware, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is Result Area 6 in action, how we are aligning policies, partners, and funding. And just to give you a little bit of background, the Be Well Network of Care convened a couple of other meetings to bring partners together to talk about different initiatives that are happening. We've talked about community schools through a presentation from Orange County Department of Ed, the Alcove Youth Drop-In Center, and also we've talked about the CYBHI initiative. So SB HIP is one of the work streams of that larger initiative at the state level. And thanks to Diana Daly, she gave us an overview of the different funding rounds that are coming up. There's several. And so we're going to continue having these meetings. But today you all get to be part of this network of care highlighting this initiative. I do have a few questions. I actually was in Sacramento yesterday at the Office of Health Equity with CDPH. And at the state level, they're also working to create alignment to improve behavioral health equity for children and youth, including not only DHCH, but the California Surgeon General, and everyone has a role in this process. The overall goal of the CYBHI initiative is to reimagine the way behavioral health support is provided to all children and youth in California by bringing together support systems to create an ecosystem that fosters social and emotional well-being and addresses the behavioral health challenges facing children and youth. It's really about creating a cross-system of partnerships involving stakeholders from the various systems and reimagining this ecosystem and making it equity focused. During the pandemic, we saw that many children didn't have access to behavioral health resources. And through this initiative, we're really kind of taking a step forward and sort of addressing some of the impacts of COVID, which included social and emotional development delays, lack of educational attainment, and there's many other things, including adverse childhood experiences, which I'm sure increased, and our collective trauma. So my question to you is, how are you reimagining this ecosystem to address inequities and disparities for children?
Who wants to start?
Thank you. So I think by coming together, the different spheres, this is groundbreaking, I think, with, again, the school districts, the different community partners and organizations, and us as the managed care plan coming together, learning the different terminology. I think one of the things that we all see is this system is hard to navigate for anyone, especially when you need help if you're going through anything that's related to mental health. And we know that certain populations have harder time to access or even get fair treatment or services. And so those, through this type of initiative, is exactly what we want to focus on. Because when we know that when we come together and work on the system issues, that means all people can get better access to the care. And for anyone that's had to try to navigate it on their own, I mean, I'm a therapist and a social worker, and it's hard for me to navigate, right? So, and I have training to do so and been working in the managed care environment for many years. So we know that for anyone to do that, and especially the different populations, and also what we're doing is making sure that we are not building this for people without people. That's the biggest thing that we heard is, don't build this for us without us. So we're making sure those voices are being heard. What type of mental health care concerns do they have? How do they want to access services? Who do they want to talk to about it? And that's what we hope to accomplish through this.
And I would say the biggest hurdle really is access to mental health. And so bringing the services to the school campus, that's the first piece in closing the equity gap. Having worked as a school counselor myself for over 10 years in schools at the elementary, middle, and high school level, you can make referrals to your community-based partners, but whether or not the child and the family actually go is a different matter. And so then you continue to struggle with the same problem over and over. So bringing the service providers on campus is for number one. Number two is then building the capacity of the school-based staff. And I know that our partners, Western Youth Services, CHOC, and CalOptima, have training and support for school staff to make sure they understand what to look for in kids who need that, and then also helping with destigmatizing the access to mental health.
And I'll just add one thing, because all such great answers, is in that process, and I'll just give an example of like from the well spaces, is as we build those at each school, we be sure that we have input from the students at the school and the parents at the school, because each one's a little different, designed a little differently, focused a little differently. And so I think really the additional piece is listening to our community, to the people that we serve, to be sure that we're not making assumptions that are wrong, and that we are actually molding the services to the needs of the community, to the mores of the community, and that we're being supportive of the community.
Great. So in doing this work, how are you doing this work differently? How are you working in new ways? What stands out? And what excites you the most about this opportunity? You can use that one.
Okay, testing. Okay. So I think what excites me the most is it's kind of a dare to dream, right? We're designing this with full hearts and not thinking about restrictions and regulations. We're designing this with the hope and the vision of how we'd like our friends or family to access mental health care services. And so I think that the vision at the end of this is what excites me the most, when we can actually see the result of the actions together. And yes, I'm a dreamer, but I'm also realistic, right? Not one thing solves everything, but that doesn't mean that you don't go for it and then try. It's all of us together, and it's going to take a lot of continued action. And I think the other question, right, was what is different about this? What stands out? I think what stands out is just the opportunity that the state has given us to come together from all different sectors. They kind of leveled the playing field there. It's just been gracious, like I said, to come into the schools again and to learn that different language and to come in with that humility. I think that's what's different and the way this is all being driven. It is really humbling and learning. We're still learning like every single day, and we have to take a step back many times and say, oh, wait, right? And we're having tough conversations where we're honest with each other, and we're able to say, wait a minute, that might be some bias there, or I don't know if we're thinking about this correctly. And I think that's what is different, is that we're all able to look at our own selves and our organizations and say, what are we doing right, and what do we need to do better, and being willing to do that.
I think what stands out for me is this is a paradigm shift. This is a completely different way of doing business. And what is exciting for me is that we're even talking about mental health in schools, honestly, because normally it's minimized, right? The focus is on reading, writing, and math. That's what their focus is on. But honestly, students can't learn reading, writing, and math if your mental health needs and the whole child lens is not applied to the situation. So this is exciting.
I think I'll just say I've been in the mental health field for like 30 plus years now. And I often say I feel like I was like walking through the desert, and that all of a sudden an oasis appeared of just like, oh my God, we're thinking about children, about mental health and children's mental health. So I think it's just exciting to have a moment in time where we really have an opportunity to make a difference and push this forward and not have people continue to suffer. And I couldn't ask for better partners. So it's always fun to be like, oh yeah, I get to go to meetings and see all my fun partners. So that's an awesome thing.
So at this time, I'd like to see if anybody from the audience has any questions for our panelists. Okay. Go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Adriana and I am with DD Hirsch. We only have one office in Orange County, which is located in Santa Ana, FYI, and I am one of the lead clinical supervisors there. So I have 3 questions, if it's okay, or do you just want me to start with one? Okay, so I'm very I'm very excited, obviously, as probably everybody else here. I am wondering about some of the gaps just that we have faced recently. So just with students during the summertime, for example, we've heard that schools are not allowed to, and I may not have all the information, but they're not allowed to make referrals during the summertime for some obvious reasons. And so just looking at some of the gaps for us in addressing those current barriers or ongoing barriers. And in line with that, also thinking big, right? Dreaming big. How about, I know I believe it's Voya, who is a system that helps with transportation. So addressing those ongoing barriers that are very practical as well. Yes, system-wise, it's going to take a while, but can we do something more, continue to address the practical barriers that our communities are facing as well? So maybe thoughts on that? Is that something that's being addressed already?
Okay.
Well, I can speak to the summer question about making referrals. Usually, most campuses are traditional calendar, and then they have summer school. especially at the 6th through 12th grade level. They often offer summer school. They have limited mental health staff that are available during summer, so I don't know that it's they can't make referrals. It's that they may not have staff available to make referrals. If it's an emergency, certainly the administrator at the campus could and should do that. So I think moving forward, though, I think the opportunity to use Hazel Health as a telehealth service and that becoming part of the normal offering, I think that will help with that. As far as transportation, I can't really address that piece.
Thank you. So I'll just say two things there, and thanks for your questions. I think also just sitting here today, speaking to some colleagues and sitting next to people, it's reminding me how much we know and how far we need to go. So there's also mental health services available, through insurance, whether that's someone has commercial or someone has CalOptima Health. I think that would be available during the summertime, right? But I think it's how do we get them there? So I think there's still a lot of gaps, and we have to do a better job, right, of getting the word out there of, well, then how do we do that easy, and how do people do? And so we're hoping, and we'll need all of your voices and help to do that together. As far as transportation, again, I'll speak from a CalOptima Health perspective, but as part of Medi-Cal and as part of the benefits, we do offer transportation to members that need to get medical services, and that includes mental health is considered that. And so that being said, it's definitely something you can reach out to us for. I think in general, too, CalAIM, and if those that don't know about that, my wonderful colleague Nicole is going to speak in a little bit about some of that, and this is one of the initiatives under that. But that's what's helping us look at all the different structures and barriers that we have, and it's the first time that we're able to look at it from a different lens. So I think we just have to keep having these conversations about those barriers and how do we solve for them.
And we have time for one more question. Yes, back here. I'm walking fast.
My name is Vivian, and I'm an individual community member volunteer. You mentioned, addressing mental health. Besides, hearing the core classes. So are you proposing that a mental health class be specifically developed and taught in the schools? So, I've thought about this for years because that would have really helped me along the way. But it's really needed, just living skills.
I can begin the answer to that. I know mental health is often built into the 9th grade curriculum for the health class, which is a requirement for graduation. So I know that is built in there. In terms of mental health itself, I know in the well spaces that we've begun to implement, we do have often lunch and learns in there, and we have mental health experts and clinicians who come in, and some of our Orange County regional mental health coordinators who come and provide sessions there on a variety of topics. And so that is a way that we are entering that. But other than that, right now, we don't have a plan to have a mental health class itself.
And maybe Jami should shut her ears for just 1 second. I think it's a great thing to advocate for, and going to your school boards and going into the community and advocating for needs, thinking about like social emotional learning, which sometimes is a scary term for some people, but that is actually what we're talking about, right? Is how do I, exactly like a mental health class, how do I learn those skills of coping and living? And I think we all learn them as we get older, but wouldn't it have been great when you were 16 to know what you know at 40, to be like, hey, don't sweat this, like it's okay. So how do we teach those kinds of skills? So I hope that's okay to say, go advocate for it.
And I think, again, what we're looking at, we all know there's a workforce shortage, right, with licensed clinicians and others. So all this initiative, too, is helping us look at other options. We know that there are people in the community that live this and have been through it. So when we think of peers and we think of students, and so I know that there's things, Jamie, right, already with the different peers in the school helping each other. We also know through the county there's peer support. So again, the kind of the terminology and the language that we all use in different ways. And at CalOptima Health too, we're looking into that new benefit, which is community health workers. So definitely that discussion will occur with schools to say, how can we look outside of just the structure we've been looking at with, the traditional behavioral health providers. We have to look outside of that because there are many people with lived experience and other skills that could help people. It doesn't mean you always have to have a license to do that.
Well, I want to thank you all for sharing with us this SB-HIP initiative, and we look forward to hearing more about this as it unfolds and how it's making an impact in the community. For those that are in the behavioral health arena, I encourage you to look at the broader CYBHI initiative and the different funding cycles that are coming out. There's a lot of great, exciting things that are unfolding. I got to meet one of the project directors yesterday for CYBHI, and this presents a great opportunity for our communities. We need to bring more dollars to Orange County for our youth, and that's it, I think. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Iliana, and thank you, panel. That was amazing. Okay, now I have the pleasure of introducing Nicole Garcia. She's the director of CalAIM Outreach at CalOptima, the health plan. And, oh, do we have slides? We do. Okay, great. Do you want me to announce them? Or? You got it? Okay.
I'm good?
Yeah, you're great.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you so much for having me today. Here to talk about our street medicine pilot that we have with CalOptima Health. I thought it would be good to kind of just set the stage too for our unsheltered brothers and sisters in just widely. So everyone loves audience participation. So I'm just going to ask, and feel free to answer if you have an idea, what % of the entire nation's unsheltered homeless reside within California's borders? What do you think? 71, 51. Okay, hearing a few different numbers. It is 51%. So we are one state, and we are carrying 51%. Just a quick snapshot, because again, I think it's important to kind of set the tone of when I'm about to talk about our street medicine pilot here in Garden Grove, what we're looking at. So California is home to 28% of the nation's homeless, sorry, that's a typo on there. Of the people experiencing homelessness in California, 70% basically are people experiencing unsheltered homeless, leaving us with the 51. So it's quite a large number. Again, we're one state out of 50, and I think it's important to let that sink in. And what do we do about that? How can we help those people? I think that was one of the questions we had at CalOptima Health, was just because they're not coming into maybe an FQHC or a PCP or a doctor's office, they're still our members, and we're still responsible for helping them, even if they are unsheltered and they're living on the street and can't access a brick and mortar facility. And one of the answers for that is street medicine. So this general definition of street medicine is provision of healthcare and social services directly to people who are unsheltered in their own environment and outside of the four walls of a traditional brick and mortar clinic or hospital setting. Of course, brick and mortar settings are fabulous and wonderful. We all utilize them and need them. However, some of our community cannot get there for whatever reason, whatever barriers put up for them, they're not able to make it, or maybe they are, but they've been treated very poorly, or they don't feel accepted, or they don't feel that they have the right or that they've earned to be seen in a facility like that. So street medicine's one of the answers. Just looking at street medicine today, it's grown a lot. If you have an interest in street medicine, you know that CalOptima Health's team isn't new or the first of its kind. In California alone, there's at least 25 teams. Dr. Jim Withers, he's kind of looked at as the grandfather of street medicine. He started a team out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And I like one of his quotes. He says, "Let the streets build the program," because you'll see even in Orange County, there's other groups who do street medicine. There's, wound care type of style street medicines. There's backpack style street medicines. There's the large RVs that kind of go out to different locations and serve people. So there's no right or wrong, but he kind of says, one city is one city. When you've seen the unsheltered in LA, you've seen the unsheltered in LA, but it doesn't mean that that model's going to fit in every other city. So we really took that to heart at CalOptima Health, and that's why we started our street medicine team in a pilot city. So I'm excited to say that back April 3rd was our first day out on the street, and it was in the city of Garden Grove. Our program goal, I know that you're all capable of reading, but to reduce barriers to quality medical care and improve the health outcomes for Garden Grove's unsheltered population by delivering compassionate and respectful medical care through direct street outreach and engagement. So that's our program's goal. What are we looking to do in this pilot? We're looking to hopefully reduce emergency department visits. That's twofold, right? From the health plan perspective, we don't want people going to the emergency room when they don't have to. But from the human perspective too, I'm sure many of us have been to the ED. No one's excited to go to the ED. Usually you're waiting, it's stressful, it's because something bad has happened. And so if we can reduce ED visits for this population, that's a goal. We want to make sure our members or people experiencing homelessness are enrolled in CalOptima. We are lucky that we're a single plan county here in Orange County, so that's why we say enrolled specifically in CalOptima Health. But the goal really is to get people that are experiencing unsheltered homelessness health insurance so they can get the care they need. We also want to connect them to ECM, Enhanced Care Management, and community supports. These are two initiatives of CalAIM, and why that's so important is, yes, the medical component matters. Yes, we want them to be physically healthy, but it's also impossible to be healthy on the street or fully healthy on the street. You can be healthier living on the street, but not healthy. So when we introduce enhanced care management and community supports, which includes housing navigation, for example, we're getting people on their journey towards housing and really towards health. We're also wanting to move them, like I was just saying, to a shelter or a housing option, and then connecting participants to a medical home. We are finding that most of the members so far being encountered by our street medicine team actually do have CalOptima Health already. But if you were to ask who their PCP is, who was assigned to them, or if they've been lately, the answer is no. And so we want to make sure that they feel confident knowing their medical home and where they can get care. What's exciting about this is the all plan letter that the state released allowed street medicine teams to be PCPs. That was back in November. So before then, even though there was, like I said, over 25 wonderful teams, even more probably in California, they weren't able to serve as PCPs. So they could see them, they could do wound care, they could do treatment and health, but they weren't able to be PCP. And why does that matter? Well, because of specialists. So in order to be able to see a specialist, your PCP needs to refer you to said specialist. And so being able to be medical home to the members in our community is really an important key to getting them the full scope of health services that they need. What does our program model look like? So we are focused on trauma-informed care, canvassing, and comprehensive medical and social care. Trauma-informed care, I know that's such a buzz phrase, a buzzword, right? Everyone's doing trauma-informed care, and that's fabulous. I'm a therapist as well, and I'm not belittling it, I genuinely value it. But what does that translate to when we're actually serving people? And for street medicine, what it means is meeting people literally and physically where they're at. We say that, right? That phrase often, like, I'm gonna meet them where they're at. But again, what does that mean? And for street medicine, it means walking up to the car that they're living in, meeting them at the park, meeting them at a corner because that's where they're at that day. It's going to their physical location and not asking us to meet them somewhere. not asking them to meet us, sorry. I think there's nothing wrong with that model too. There's a lot, like I said, there's a lot of great FQHCs and providers who have like kind of that big mobile unit and they set up and the community knows where they're gonna be and they go to them. That's awesome too, but for our model, we're really wanting to go to the clients. Rapport first and care second, so that's a big as well. In our mental health world, we talk about the importance of rapport. But when we're looking and working with those who are unsheltered, they've been burned many times. Why would they trust us if we just say, hi, I'm Nicole, can I be your PCP? They're like, no, who are you and what's your motivation? So really, it's building rapport, it's saying hi, it's visiting, it's offering a water. Before we really look at the medical side, we want to know who they are, let them tell their story, things like that. Similar, being person-centered. Whole person, so again, yes, the medical services matter. Yes, it's important to treat that, but it's also important to look at the whole person. I used to sit in our county clinics and, we talk about as social workers and therapists having a toolkit. And, sometimes your toolkit, you look down and you're like, okay, well, they haven't eaten, so I feel like my toolkit of CBT and psychodynamic isn't really gonna help because we're talking about being hungry, we're talking about being unsheltered, and so really looking at the whole person to see what they need. And then ratios. So the peers on our on our street medicine team have ratios of 25-1. So that really allows for them to be the member's person. They can talk to the members every day if the member needs that. They can weekly be visiting and getting eyes on people and seeing what they need. I realize that's a luxury, especially if you've worked in maybe county settings or certain CBO settings that we can't have the 25-1, but that's something that we really thought was important. Also canvassing. So many programs, and again, nothing wrong with it, but many programs are referral based. So maybe in an office somewhere, someone's sitting by a phone and waiting for a phone call to come through for a referral. When we're working with people who are experiencing homelessness, do they have a phone? Do they know someone whose phone that they could borrow? Do they feel comfortable, even if they have a phone, do they feel comfortable picking up the phone and calling and asking for someone to come out and help them? It's hard to ask for help. And so we wanted to be canvas-based. What that means is our street medicine team, they have a big white van, it's been in the pictures, is really just driving the streets of Garden Grove. They meet with Garden Grove Police regularly. They meet with the Be Well team regularly to collaborate. And so hearing kind of about hotspots, hearing where people are, and really just driving to those places and trying to canvas as opposed to waiting for a phone call. We could wait all day for a phone call for a referral, or they could get out in the car, drive around, and meet 10 people that day. So that's another value. And then, like I said, comprehensive medical and social care. So, each of them alone is beautiful, but when we can bring it all together, when we can do the medical care component and the social services all on one team, that's what we're looking to do. So the care coordination team is the team providing the housing navigation, the enhanced care management. They're getting people document ready. They're listening to them, just talking with them, getting to know them. All the kind of, like I say, the pretty side of things, that's what I used to love to do, and I'm sure it's what many of you love to do. The medical team, on the other hand, they're doing important things too, but it is medical based. So the van is very equipped. They can draw blood, they can spin blood, they can do EKGs, they can do ultrasounds, they can do a lot of exciting things. It makes me feel like, whoa, when did all this happen? But it's a very tech savvy van, and it's not even huge. It's like ambulance size, and they're able to do all these wonderful things. So both the medical component and the social services side together, they're able to deliver these services. If you're wondering kind of what the team looks like, what the team's made up as, there's people on both sides. So on the medical care team, we have a nurse practitioner and a physician's assistant on the van at all times. They are overseen by by a doctor, of course. They also have a psychiatrist that they do rounds with weekly as well, because behavioral health treatment is a big part of what they're doing, and also substance use treatment. And then the care coordination side is the peers, and so there's always peers on the van as well. You'll notice in the previous slide how it was kind of like sectioned out. That's where the peers come into play, because we can't have the peers being responsible for all the people. Like I said, it's 25-1. So maybe in one concentrated area we have Joe, he's the peer, and it's the same PA and nurse, but then maybe the next day they're in a different area of Garden Grove, and that's Michelle's area, right? And so the patient panel size for this pilot is 200, so the nurse and PA can see all the 200 when we get to that number, and then it's the peers who kind of rotate and have different days on the van, and then when they're not in the van, they're still out on the street, they're still meeting people, doing services, helping them get to doctor's appointments, but they don't physically have to be on the van. I think the exciting part of all this is the partnerships. When I was talking to Karen about this, I was saying, you know, I worked in the county many years before I came over to CalOptima Health, and I just love that I still get to work with the county, that I still get to work with Be Well, and I had some disaster work too that I did for a while, so I got to work with EMS again, and it's just really exciting. So Be Well is one of our partners. They're able to make referrals to us, and vice versa. We work with police and fire as well. Not so much for, well, the police side is referrals. For the fire side, it's just if there was maybe a frequent person that they were serving, they'd be able to let us know about that. Families Together OC is an FQHC. The goal, of course, is to get people housed. So eventually, when people are stably housed, we would love for FQHCs, specifically in Garden Grove, FTOC, to be their medical home. And then the healthcare agency. So the healthcare agency, I'm sure you've heard of the outreach and engagement team, as well as the Chat H team. They are both teams that are street-based as well, and they're able to make referrals to the street medicine team as well. So it's really these partnerships that are key. We're able to collaborate, and I love the better together that kept being kind of sprinkled throughout. It's true. Each of these entities does good work, right? Great work even. But if we can come together to serve our members, especially those experiencing homelessness, I think that's a huge win. I did want to share this picture. So this is the Garden Grove Be Well team, as well as some of the street medicine team. Forgive me if I didn't give proper credit. So our street medicine team is the providers, our Healthcare in Action, if you've heard of them before. So although it's CalOptima Health who launched and funded the street medicine team, Healthcare in Action is the team who actually does the work day in and day out on the street. They have many teams, actually, not just our Garden Grove team, but in other counties as well. But this is the team collaborating. It's really awesome because daily the Be Well Garden Grove team is calling HIA and vice versa with that canvassing model, which I know Be Well isn't necessarily a canvassing only model, right? They're with dispatch, of course. But they also don't just sit around. They're go-getters. They're looking to help people. So when I shadowed them, I remember, yes, we responded to some, when I shadowed Be Well, we responded to some dispatch calls, but we were also looking to help people just on the downtime. And I think that's the beauty, is both teams are kind of doing that. And so Healthcare in Action might be meeting somebody, noticing there's a mental health need, and can call Be Well to join. Be Well might be meeting with somebody. They see that there's really a need for kind of medical care, whether it's wound care or just medical care in general, because we all need it. They can call Healthcare in Action. They can coordinate to go out on people together. This was just that. So there was an unsheltered gentleman, elderly, in a wheelchair with dementia, and they were able, Healthcare in Action and Be Well were able to collaborate. Of course, it didn't take just once, right? It takes building rapport. It takes a couple times of visiting and getting to know this gentleman. When he was first asked about going to a skilled nursing facility? The answer was no, but that's okay. We keep showing up, we keep asking because we want to help these people. And so ultimately they were able to get him into a SNF, and I think that's a huge win. And it was really the collaboration of Be Well and Healthcare in Action together that were able to help this man. I do want to note too, I think one thing to remember is, you know, I love the commitment of both teams, both Be Well and the Healthcare in Action staff, because I think sometimes as a community we will offer help, but the help is what we think somebody needs, right? It's not necessarily what they're looking for or they feel they need. It's like, we think you should fit in this square. And they're like, well, I don't fit in this square. We're like, well, you're service resistant. That's not fair. They're not service resistant. They just don't need to fit in the square, right? They're looking for a triangle. They're like, but I really need a triangle. But if we keep showing up, we keep listening, we genuinely meet the person where they're at, then we start to shift our square into a triangle. And we say, oh, can we offer you this? And then they say yes, and it's beautiful, and everyone wins. So I think even though, you know, Be Well has been around much longer, and even though the Healthcare in Action team is only a couple months old, I just commend both teams because they don't give up on people. They keep showing up, they keep canvassing, and they keep just kind of offering people the help that the people need instead of us forcing them into something. Some of the progress so far I'm excited to share. So like I said, they went live in April 3rd, so can you believe it's almost July? Wow. But it'll almost be 3 months, but it's been about 2.5. So in that 2.5 month time, and I'll mention too, Street Medicine is a Monday through Friday like business hours program. I know Be Well Mobile is in the community a lot more than that. For our team, it's business hours Monday through Friday. They've outreached to 129 people so far, which I think is great. The goal actually that was set by us, by CalOptima, was 50 people by October. So it is June. They've gotten to 129, which is fabulous. And they've enrolled 62 of those 129. And I think if you do a little quick math, that's a 48% conversion rate. And I think that's something to be really proud of. We're talking about a community, again, who has been burned many times, who has good reason to not trust people showing up in uniform to serve them. And so 48% is great. We shared that number at a recent steering committee meeting. We meet with healthcare agency and Be Well and the police and fire, and the police said, wow, ours is 1%. I was like, good job, CalOptima Street Medicine team. And obviously, the goals and the approach of police are different than street medicine. No, not commenting one's right or wrong, but I just felt really proud to hear 48%. And I think, too, the other thing that we're seeing in going on to month 3 is the shift between outreach to service. So, you know, the first couple of weeks, it was really outreach-based. We weren't necessarily having people agree to services. They were just spending the time out on the streets, getting to know people, meeting people, introducing, offering water, snacks, things like that. And so the outreach numbers were high. And this last month, I noticed the outreach dipped, but it's because the cases went up. And that's what we would expect to see. And I think what's exciting, though, is that we're seeing it in month 3. So I'm excited to see what we can achieve in Garden Grove. And like I said, it's a pilot program, so certain outcomes we might not meet. I hate to use the word fail, but it might not work out, and that's okay. It's all meant to be learning. Like Jim Withers said back in the beginning, it's letting the streets build the program, so we did the best we could with what we knew, but we're really open to learning from the people that we're serving, to hear what they need and to see how we can best help. Any questions? Yes?
You know, I was just curious, on one of the first slides you mentioned 25% to housing or shelter and then 25% to medical housing. How did you get those numbers? Because that's half of the people that you'd work with would be housed.
Yeah, we just set goals. Yeah, I think, I mean, we spent time and thought and research. I think the medical home piece was really, the 25% to a medical home was being transparent, was before the all plan letter came out. And so I think we're going to blow that one out of the water, quite frankly, because most of the people so far enrolled are agreeing to make Healthcare in Action their PCP. So we're gonna shine in that objective. For the housing, we all know that doesn't grow on trees. There's not, vouchers being handed out to everyone, and it's a real crisis that we're facing. And so I think we want to see more than that, but we also have to work with the realities of, for example, yes, Garden Grove's getting a shelter, which is so exciting, but for now there isn't one, and we all know residency requirements and that frustration. So I think we were just trying to come up with something. Yeah. Anything else? Sure.
When are you going to expand who you're servicing?
Sure. That's probably the most popular question. I think, with this pilot, we want to be cautious to not move on too quickly because we want to do it right. And so we really want to take this opportunity to learn and see what we can and can't do, or maybe could do better. And so I think our goal is, this was a 2-year pilot, but we are not going to wait the 2 years to expand. I think in a perfect world, we'll be looking to have our next team on the streets a year from April when Garden Grove went live. So probably in April. Anything else?
Other questions?
I need to talk to somebody else after the meeting about my son's experience, but he was admitted to Be Well. A team came out and talked to him, took him to the center, and decided I didn't understand the difference between the long-term and the short-term program, but that he could go and just deal with support, which was a peer counselor and some other supports. And there were some problems about where he was supposed to stay, because I was being told by a social worker that he should not come back, and he was released to go to be with the homeless people at the park, which was not what we had in mind. So we had to do that. But I have to say that about 2 weeks later, he was staying in the garage, and I went and decided that I was going to kick up my heels and get a haircut. And I was on the freeway, and I got a call, and it was from the police. And some neighbors had seen the intervention of the Be Well team earlier, and he was walking up and down the street ranting, just ranting at the top of his lungs. He was not, he had not ever done this before. He had done it in the house where he would get bombastic. But they called the police, and the police, of course, had his name because there had been an intervention, and they sent out a couple of policemen. And they said, they called me to let me know. And afterwards, he said to me, they knew my name. And it was huge. It was just huge. So all that time that you're just out doing outreach and not anything specific, you're still making people known who are not known. And it's huge. They know that somebody knows their name.
Yeah.
So hats off to you.
Thank you for sharing. I think that you make a fabulous point, and there was recently something out in the news about, I don't remember the statistic, maybe someone else saw it too, but it was unsheltered people haven't heard their name usually in years. And so all the work that we all do to try to remember that, and when we do step on the street, because some of us get lucky, and even if we're in like a supervisory role, we get to go serve face to face to use people's names because it matters. Thank you for sharing.
I'm wondering, what is the criteria? It may be obvious, but I'm wondering, I'm speaking for immigrant communities specifically, and also, can anybody make that referral? It sounds like it's just limited to some organizations or entities. And we've had people come to seek our services, and they're currently homeless, but we don't know where they're homeless, right? So would they
Sure.
be able to qualify, for example, if we reached out?
Okay, yes. So criteria, great question, and silly me for not saying. Yes, I think you kind of said, oh, maybe it's assumed. That's not fair, right? I should have clarified. So definitely, yes, street medicine is for unsheltered individuals. So that would be people living on the street for the most part. It could be, as you mentioned too, they're transient, right? So maybe they're sleeping in a shelter, but then during the day they have to vacate and they're out socializing or doing, just living their life, trying not to bother anybody. So if they happen to end up living in a shelter, that's okay too, because that's technically homeless as well. So unsheltered in the city of Garden Grove. We don't make anyone prove that you've been homeless in Garden Grove. There's no residency or that you must have been from Garden Grove. It's just the van itself for the pilot stays within the boundaries of Garden Grove. In terms of referrals, yes, we're not really a referral-based program, so although police and fire and Be Well, we kind of work together on a daily basis, referral-wise, we work with outreach and engagement and Chat H from the county. Beyond that, it would be our hope that the team catches or sees or runs into the members that they can serve. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We can take one more question.
This is from a friend. She wanted me to ask, why is CalOptima dismantling their homeless outreach health program effective December 31st?
Outreach program. I'm looking at Carmen. I'm not. Okay. I do know that on the case management team that there were some staff that did that supported members experiencing homelessness. I don't know if it was December of last year. Those positions were transitioned to the CalAim team to serve in a different role. And the reason being, because the outreach and engagement team, our partners at the county, we feel that they are more than competent and more than able to help our members experiencing homeless in the county. Yeah. Okay. Hello. Okay. Great. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Nicole. Yeah. Thank you. That was fantastic. It's good to know about the new service that's being tested, piloted in the community. Okay, so I have a surprise. We're not only at the end of the meeting, but we're going to have a celebration of the 5th anniversary of the blueprint of Be Well, and we have a cake. So that makes everybody happy. But don't leave before you get cake. And I just want to really thank you all for everything that you're doing individually and collectively to advance the Be Well movement. And as Dr. Clayton Chow, our former HCA director, who is now vacationing in Japan, very, very well-deserved vacation after everything that he has been through and has done for the county. He used to say, we are all Be Well. And so, again, we're better together. Thank you for being here today. Please do not leave without having cake. And thank you. And the next meeting will be in September. Oh my gosh, I forgot. I'm so bad. Okay, I have an announcement. Where is?
I don't know where she is, but I'll.
Oh. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Dina is somewhere around here. Okay, Dina Helmy is, she and I co-chair the Behavioral Health Equity Committee. And next month, we're on July 27th, we are celebrating Minority Mental Health Awareness Month. We're going to have a big event here in this room, and you're all invited. Please take a flyer. We will be providing lunch. There'll be a cultural village with resources. We want ethnic organizations to be highlighted in this. We're going to have a panel of diverse members who will talk about their mental health experience. So we welcome you to come and join us. This is the county's Behavioral Health Equity Committee. Thanks.
All of you people leaving, you have to come up and have cake. I'm going to push the cake. Thank you for being here.